Welcome to the Legendary Upside podcast. My name is Pat Crane. You can follow all of my content at legendaryupside.com. Today, we are going to be digging around in the late rounds of best ball drafts. We're going to be talking through the landscape in the late rounds. This is a key part of winning these best ball tournaments. You're going to need big scores from your last round picks. Ideally, big scores that other people don't have. You get leverage this time of year if you take guys who haven't been drafted in a tournament like Best Ball Mania that's been open all summer. So we're going to get into all of that and talk through various situations in the back half of these drafts here. With me today, Daniel Racz, Davis Mattek, Kyle Dvorchak, and Sackreligious. Guys, how's it going?
Unbelievably well. Just another day, more CLV for my favorite picks. It's I guess not Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren is the only one without insane CLV, but we're feeling good.
Yeah, well, Jalen Warren, we're getting now in the hundreds sometimes, so we're consoling ourselves that way. And also, it doesn't seem like the hamstring injury is as bad as it could have been. So, yeah, we'll survive.
I don't know if you guys
just tell the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, I am fine. We are just looking at this point to the regular season. Answered flat no when asked if there was any worried about playing in Week 1 versus the Falcons.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. One of my favorite CLV picks is also causing me to not be able to get this player very much anymore. And I have no reason or no clue why Rico Dowdle is shooting up as much as he is. I don't know who wrote an article about him and did this, but
yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good pick at 130, guys, and we took a lot of it. I think Rico's one where the CLV doesn't bother me too much because we did have the bags packed at least. Still fourth highest drafted player. Rashee Rice, I wish we talked a little bit less about. I needed to pack the bags a little harder before he rose to like the 3-4 turn.
You can just take him there. There's no law against it.
I have done it. I'm still at 16%, but I once was in the mid-20s and that felt better. So yeah, we want to dive into. Now we're getting preseason data. Obviously, we're now in the third week of preseason. We had a couple games last night, and we should start to have a better idea of what to do in the last rounds. I don't always feel like I have a great idea though of what to do when I'm down there, and so we're going to spend most of the time on this pod kind of talking through that. Let's start with the Bears backfield because you guys had a lot of thoughts after the game last night on how you're tackling Khalil Herbert.
I moved him way up in my ranks. I moved him probably the most I've moved around 16 guy up the whole season. Cause I just was answering myself this question. Khalil Herbert is a version of Ray Davis that's already been a good NFL player. And that even if this fan fiction about him getting traded or cut happens, I think he's a good player who gets claimed by a place who'll have a role. But really the evidence from the preseason suggests they just view him at worst, the 1B to Swift. And if you read the Week 1 preseason data a certain way, it really depends on how you choose to read it. They might view him as the 1A and Swift is kind of the, kind of like how he would have been. And
they might view DeAndre Swift, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I think they might view DeAndre Swift like DeAndre Swift. a rotational running explosion committee guy that they overpaid for by a lot. But one of the biggest things I think when we do this, the contracts indicate what a front office thinks about the guy, but then the coaches are going to spend all summer and all season with him, and the money won't affect those perceptions at that point.
Worth noting, the Bears had about $113 million in cap space as well. They had no veterans on the books at all. It's why they were able to bring in Keenan. They could have signed Saquon. They could have done what they had infinite money.
They had to hit the cap floor essentially, as they were a team. They were taking off-ball linebackers for insanely expensive contracts, given the context of what the NFL thinks is valuable. And I'm not saying that's an indictment of the front office. Even they just had to in the NFL. At a certain point, you do have to spend money. You're not allowed to operate at below a certain level of payment. I think it rolls for 4 years, so it's a little bit more nebulous. But point being, they had to spend on someone. You can't just keep your money and hoard it like a dragon. Do I think they spend it the best way? Obviously not. But also, their coaches don't seem to think they spend it the best way because I don't think they're going to treat DeAndre Swift like his contract indicates.
And
So
other front offices as well. I know in the Giants Hard Knocks, they were talking about who they would bring in for their running back, and they had Swift and Singletary in the same tier of running back. And they gave Singletary 3 years, 16.5. Swift got, I think, 3 for 21 up to 24, or was 3 for 24 flat. So this was a player that we have actual evidence that one other front office thought was the same quality as Devin Singletary for what he could bring to an offense.
Yeah, although in fairness to Swift, that team then signed Devin Singletary, so they might have just been too high.
NFL coaches love Devin Singletary. If there's anything we
yeah.
know, it's that NFL coaches
Motor.
get Singletary in the building and they love that dude.
We need nickname analytics because Motor is about as good as it gets for an NFL running back.
Swift has the nickname in his name.
But no one. They don't call him that.
Name.
They call him DeAndre.
They call him, will you please block? Will you please break a tackle? I'm begging you one time to break a tackle. And he's like, it's not my game.
No,
I think they call him Swift because they're describing the speed at which they bench him. I don't think it's about the speed on the field.
Yeah.
So Tank is a pretty confusing nickname for nickname analytics. You get Tank Dell, that's a smash. You get Tank Bigsby, that's atrocious.
Well, Tank Dell is also tiny. Tank. We need to stop naming guys. Tank needs, or is it like
only ironic.
John? Is it a Little John type of situation?
Yeah, only ironic nicknames when referring to a player's
Robin
size.
Hood, not the rapper. Sorry. So I want to just jump in and let the people know why we're excited about Khalil Herbert, and it's because we didn't see him last night. He got rested, along with DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. So there was worry early in the offseason that Khalil Herbert would get cut. This isn't what you do when you're going to cut a guy or trade a guy. You would put him out there for like the whole game and try to show off how good he is so someone else, can grab him for a 7th round pick or whatever. Like, it's very likely that Herbert makes this team. And the problem for Swift is that Herbert is a better early down runner than him. And that's likely to be a problem over the course of the whole season. So at this point, like, if Herbert is going to be in a rotation on an offense that we're excited about, like, are you guys, like, compare him to Braylon Allen, Tyrone Tracy, like, are you moving him above those guys?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I was thinking this morning, like, Tyler Algier would kind of make sense. Like, the Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier, like, right in there. Because I think he's got some type of contingent upside. He can't really consolidate because he doesn't do passing down work. So,
and I was going to say, there's just a second running back in the mix as well. Even if DeAndre Swift's season-ending injury today, I think we're projecting Roschon Johnson for a frustrating amount of the work. I don't think he's like a particularly great player, but for Ty Chandler, for example, I think if Aaron Jones goes down like middle of the year, they don't have. We saw it last year. They just don't have another choice. It becomes Ty Chandler. So you don't have that out with Khalil Herbert. That doesn't make him bad. He's still like, he's going to get a strong workload or a very usable workload early in the season. And he's just better than Roschon Johnson. Like,
it does make him a weaker pick to me than Algier, though, because Algier is just going to be a workhorse if Robinson misses any time. Like, he can.
Do we think Algier has any standalone value, though? I think it's different flavors of. I don't think Algier is going to see the field enough where you're. If Bijan never gets hurt, Algier cracks your lineup maybe twice in the entire season. Khalil Herbert could just be averaging 12 touches a game. So I do think they're in a similar vein of where we should rank them, but they're very different players in how they impact your team.
It depends on what you need. It's kind of like how the Zeke pick is like a hole plugger. He's just hey, I need points right now. Let me take this guy, and he patches over the early season while you get like a Jonathan Brooks, or you get some exciting rookies to come on. Khalil Herbert is like that, probably with like a little less work than Zeke, and he's not going to get the passing stuff that Zeke will get, but he probably has a little bit better, upside in his base case than Zeke does, but he doesn't have the huge contingent upside that some of the guys do around him. You're muted, Pat.
Pat, you're muted.
Well, it's a good thing I was muted because I was defending Zeke. I don't know. I think just purely from like scammy touchdown PPR type stuff, Zeke probably has more upside in his base case than Herbert, because Herbert,
What if the Bears offense is better than the Cowboys? What if all this systemic risk that people are saying, like, you can't do a best ball stream without some commenter being like, this is going to be the worst offense in football? And what if that commenter is right?
I mean,
what if that commenter
it
is
takes
right?
Dak getting hurt, I think, to be the worst offense in football. Dak good would be my counter argument to that. The Herbert. What about Herbert versus Jaleel McLaughlin?
I think that was right where my line was, and it's like
very similar
Jaleel
play.
McLaughlin might be like a 3-way timeshare on the 29th best offense in football. Like, and he weighs 182 pounds. Like, it's definitely possible that we have too high of confidence in, fake Darren Sproles on the fake Saints.
It's called Pierre Thomas. Is what?
Sure. Yeah, it's possible. I'm not. That was like the line for me. Was like kind of like that range of guys.
Yeah, I'd probably take him over Jaleel, but I think they're both good picks. I do think, to Davis's point, the base projection for Jaleel, I guess if they cut Pirine, it's actually probably as good. No, Jaleel. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I think Jaleel.
Out of confidence that they cut Pirine. If you told me today, if Sean Payton came out and said we've locked him into a roster spot, I would feel very underwhelmed by Jaleel because that takes off a big chunk of his upside. I'm still feeling pretty good about him getting cut. I mean, in week 2 of the preseason, they rolled out Javonte Jaleel with the starters. Jaleel ran a bunch of routes in the way that Samaje Perine would have. That looked pretty good that they were auditioning him for the Perine role. So I'm actually going to say they're cutting Perine and Jaleel's a better pick. Herbert's a good pick too, though. It's not.
What about so you guys like him more than Bucky Irving, Ray Davis, like those kind of high upside rookie type bets?
I like it more than Ray Davis because of the Ty Johnson issue. Like it definitely seems like Ray Davis is not the clear head and shoulders running back 2 on the team. I think it's, if something happened to James Cook, those two would definitely be splitting the work. And I'm not even sure if Ray Davis has any kind of standalone value. Like he might get 20% of the snaps while James Cook is healthy and, Ty Johnson gets 15%. So but Bucky's a little bit more interesting to me.
Yeah, I think we probably need to get a little more aggressive on Bucky, actually.
I think it's kind of, I moved Bucky up too, but I kind of think that, like Khalil is like Bucky having already done it. Like Khalil Herbert is like an undersized, really productive college player who already proved to his NFL team that he can play. So that is worth something to me.
Yeah, I think the difference is
true.
That if White goes down, I feel really good about Bucky in the short term. In the long term, he doesn't profile as a guy who you're like, oh, he's a 4-year starter. But in the short term, which is the game we're playing right now, I think they wouldn't have another choice but to give Bucky a ton of touches. You can't quite say that about DeAndre Swift going down because they still have Roshan, or Roshan going down because then it would just be Swift and Herbert. But I do think the base projection, or Velus Jones, the base projection though for Herbert is a meaningful role in week 1. And that's definitely not true of Bucky. Like, I don't think he cracks your lineup often / at all without a White injury, probably.
The other thing about Herbert is, I said his contingent value wasn't as good as Tyler Algiers. I don't think it is, but if Swift missed time, Roshan, I think, would mostly be in on passing downs, and Herbert on a half PPR site would have some pretty nice upside.
You'd be very happy with it. Yeah, I just think if White goes down versus if Swift goes down, who is projected for more in DFS that week? It's probably Bucky, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. So, I mean, it's exciting. It's also exciting because we've invested pretty heavily in Rico Dowdle, and Khalil Herbert was like the one dude where I'm like, yeah, he's probably better than Dowdle, and kind of would come do a similar thing to Dowdle, like be a bit more of kind of the early down runner type. So that's nice if he stays with the Bears. That's a good outcome. Another guy I want to talk about, Tucker Kraft. We also have Luke Musgrave, who isn't like a true late round pick, but should he be?
I mean, I think
I'm nervous.
Yeah, with how much we've taken him before, and I'm probably at 12 to 15% Musgrave, I'm getting it to 0, trying to get as close to 8% as possible. It's more worrying than I initially thought.
It's more worrying than I initially thought, but also I think we were really right in being very bullish. Last year, both of them got the same offseason, and Kraft was just did not play at all in the first few weeks, and Musgrave was 70, 80% of the routes. That's the best you can ask for of a rookie and the most dusting of his backup you can ask for. That felt really good. And then when we saw Tucker Kraft, he was fine, but he was not as good in yards per route run, targets per route run, open score as Luke Musgrave. He was just a worse player. So a month ago, and of course this year, we get Tucker Kraft not getting a normal offseason. So a month ago, Luke Musgrave dusted him and gets a good offseason and is a better player. That's a good pick. All the hype coming out of camp right now is that Tucker Kraft is getting reps with the ones, he's making plays, and he's not a bad player. He's also young. Like his stats last year, albeit not great, should improve. Like young players generally do tend, if they're good.
Yeah, and he was also, I think, as good a prospect as Musgrave. Like,
yeah, I think I had him ahead of Musgrave in terms of prospect. They were both good athletes.
Both good athletes.
Musgrave was completely unproductive until 2 games of his final season.
Paper thin production resume, but then he splashed and was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then Kraft was a small school guy, so you're like, I don't know if this means anything. But they were both. They're kind of like athleticism, draft capital, because Tucker Kraft was a 3rd round pick, and they also said at the time, they were like, I don't know, man, we need another tight end. Like we need a tight end, so we took 2 cracks at it. Basically, it's coach speak for like we're trying to find a tight end, and we took 2 cracks.
Kraft just does the classic, like he's gonna put his hand in the dirt. He was a really good blocker for them. Like they called his name off the bench when Musgrave got hurt. The offense didn't change at all. Actually, like Love's best games came with Musgrave out of the lineup and Kraft in. Not that really means anything in the grand scheme, but it's enough that I was like not prioritizing Musgrave and probably would have kept pressing the button on Kraft without that. I remember I had like 21% of Kraft in the big board, and then it was like, oh, he tore his pec, and I was like, well, probably should get that number down. So I think I would I just would not take. I would do what Daniel did. I just wouldn't take Kraft pretty much for the next 13 days.
You mean Musgrave?
Yes, I just wouldn't take Musgrave for like the next 13 days. I'd be like, whatever I have is enough now.
I think I probably still not taking Kraft though, right? I still think despite like getting some,
I think I am taking Kraft because of leverage. Like, no one has Kraft in this tournament.
I mean, because he's a backup tight end.
He might not be the backup.
Kraft
I still think it's most likely
Dawson Knox versus Dulcich as a round 18 tight end.
Dawson Knox.
Kraft.
Yeah, but what about Theo Johnson as a round 18 tight end?
Theo.
Because
I'm just not taking Giants players at this time.
And I would 100 Theo, 0 Kraft. I mean, I guess it's hard for me to it's hard for me to pin down like what would have changed this year to make Kraft the starter when he failed to earn that job last year. And he didn't practice at all this offseason until like 3 weeks ago now.
I don't know, but he's repping with the ones. So
I mean,
maybe it was Musgrave had a bad summer or something. Maybe they want, they've got this really crowded receiving core. Maybe they really value what Kraft brings to the table as a blocker. Maybe he helps them open up certain plays they want to run, as opposed to Musgrave is basically like a field stretcher. He's a Dulcich type dude. He's a, big downfield receiver type guy. Well, they've got 4 or 5, honestly, downfield receivers who they could play plenty of snaps on. So I don't know, maybe Kraft fits their plan a little better.
Yeah, but then that would just be like he's a blocker, like
play action stuff,
I guess. I mean, to me, it's like, I totally think those things could be true. But what do you win when you get leverage play blocker gets a play action snap? It's the reason I never took Dawson Knox is he caught at most 36 yards in a game last year. I think that's probably what you'd hope for from Kraft. It's like, he's the 1A who doesn't get chunk plays, who doesn't get the ball a lot, but you hope he scores a touchdown, and that's worth 9 total points.
4 for 40 and a touchdown, and then maybe do it again. Do another touchdown, and we're golden. I'm mostly doing it if I have Love.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I'm not like he's not a priority for me because I am taking a lot of Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson's just such a cleaner bet. He looks like the starting tight end.
Theo Johnson honestly looks like what I'm projecting Luke Musgrave for right now, and Luke Musgrave goes way earlier. Like I don't think Theo Johnson opens the year with 100% route rate. They've still platooned him in the preseason.
No. It'll be like 50. It'll be like 50.
But he looks like the starter, or at least the 1A probably, and is super cheap. And all the receivers on that team that aren't the first round rookie are probably not that good. So yeah, I actually think that's maybe the apt comparison. Also, they're both super athletes with weak college production too.
You're hoping that Theo Johnson is basically like Noah Fant last year in the first part of the season, and then he becomes what we hope Noah Fant is this year by the end of the season. That's the play.
Have you guys caught this, by the way? It's just not on our rundown, but like Noah Fant is like legitimately injured Like I read a
Right.
report that his status for week 1 is like kind of up in the air, which
It
Him
says
and Hunter
they're
Henry
hopeful
are-
for week 1, but yeah, him and Hunter Henry are both. I stopped clicking Hunter Henry as much and started
I
doing
started
more Noah
clicking more
Fant.
Fant.
And,
Yeah, me
and
too.
then I was reading Seahawks stuff. It's like, wait a minute.
This is the same red flag. Well,
Yeah,
what about Musgrave compared to those guys? Like, are you taking those dudes over Musgrave?
Yeah,
I would still take Musgrave over them, but the price, like, not at this price. If
It
they
might.
were both,
I mean, it's only about 12 picks difference.
Why would I
Well,
take Musgrave over like Juwan Johnson right now? With how much in the context of how much Musgrave we all have? I think I'm like 15% Musgrave.
Well, what are you at, Jawan? Because I have like 21%.
I'm
I
at
have so
20,
much
yeah.
Jawan,
I
so
have
that
so much
argument doesn't
Jawan.
hold for me.
Hang on,
I'm at
let's
13,
Let's
Juwan.
look at this.
I'm only at 7 Musgrave.
that's just not a tight end portion of the draft anymore. That's Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Khalil Herbert.
It's very much a tight end portion of the
Well,
draft.
I think you mean kind of the early late rounds, and the late rounds are very much tight end. But you're saying
yes.
like
I'm saying like rounds like 13 or like rounds like 12 through 15. I'm kind of just taking running backs there. I also have already selected. I've just like already selected Brock Bowers at this portion of the draft, so I'm like, do I even need another tight end? Or like,
you're just going solo tight end with Brock Bowers.
Speaking of young, athletic, and injured tight ends who might not play week 1, thank God I have 20% Bowers.
I just am choosing not to let worrying about that enter into my consciousness. So I like, why worry? It's fine.
That's how I was handling Hunter Henry, just setting up Drake May. You talked about rounds 12 through 15. That's just setting up Drake May. So, Jalen Polk, Hunter Henry. And then the reports like Hunter Henry might miss time in the regular season. I'm just ignoring it, looking at 20% Hunter Henry and choosing to walk on by.
Agreed.
Okay, Jonnu Smith or Luke Musgrave?
Musgrave.
Luke.
Yeah, I'm kind of Jonnu pilled, but still Musgrave. I'm still kind of Jonnu pilled.
What about Cole Kmet?
Because that's the same thing. That's the same thing.
I don't know. I don't know what to do
in this scenario. Cole Kmet might be the Kraft, might be the he's going to sub in a little bit for play action, but they have a starter. Like, I genuinely just don't even know that Cole Kmet is A, the starter, and B, I don't think he's that good. So
I personally think Cole Kmet's pretty good. I just think that they have some weird fascination with Gerald Everett. But Gerald Everett is an incredible pick on FFPC right now. Like, you can get him in the 19th, 20th round. And he very much could be the tight end leading in route rate for the Bears.
What about Tyler Conklin, Kate Otten? These locked in out.
Those guys just don't even exist to me. They don't even come preloaded in my.
I would be those guys over Musgrave, partially because I don't have very much of them, and I think that, like, is Kate Otten entirely uninspiring? Absolutely, but
I was worried you were going to ask us that, and I was like, yeah.
But I think that we're writing it off a little too. He's still really young, and he's
a third-year player. Yeah,
he's playing 100% of snaps. Like, let's just give him. You got to at least give him the Gary Barnidge equity. Gary Barnidge is nothing special, like.
Well, I was going to say he's the Rachaad White of tight ends, and at this price, that's fine.
He is the Rachaad White of tight ends.
I don't know.
I just really couldn't be like, I think Kate Otten is the same as taking any round 18 tight end in terms of point not in terms of routes, but in terms of point distributions.
Kate Otten is that conversation we were having about, like, if you could lock in 6 points to your tight end, if you had guaranteed 6 in your tight end every single time, and you could take that player in the 18th round. He never scores more than 6. He never scores less than. He scores exactly 6 every week. Do you do it? I'm pretty sure that's a decent pick.
I mean, the Gary Barnidge thing, I'm still stuck on. Like, are they? Who is it? Mike Pettin they had? Like, are they bringing in? Like, are they going to run the 2015 Browns offense? You know what I mean? Like, there's, I don't know. There's a system that went through the tight end.
It is a change in offensive system, though, right? They no longer have Canales, so we are seeing something different there. And I'm not saying like Kate Otten is primed for a breakout. I'm just saying, like, we're treating this guy like he is exactly 0.0% chance to ever break out, and he's a young player that's managed to get. He's on the field 100% of the snaps. Like,
the Zoomers just won't. Why I'm all like I'm blown away by the Gary Barnidge reference. Gary Barnidge had 1,043 yards and 9 touchdowns. So like Gary Barnidge was
and then was out of
true
football
unicorn.
and was out of football in 18 months.
Yeah, he had 125 targets.
I was smashing my home league with Gary Barnidge and Rob Gronkowski, playing one of them in the flex every week. It was incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I don't think that's in the range, but I do think there, honestly, I made this argument a little bit for Rachaad White last year, so to deepen that comparison. When a guy gets on the field extensively early in his career, that is bullish, especially if they weren't like a first-round pick. That wasn't necessarily a given. And Cade Otton was an every down tight end as a sophomore. That's pretty good. That's something. So I don't know. I do agree with the point that we're probably overconfident about exactly how high his ceiling is. So yeah, I think I would take him over Musgrave.
Yeah, I'm there too.
And you guys aren't taking any Kraft though, because I mean he is leverage, right? Like
no, I take start out with Justin Jefferson. You take a Packers wide receiver.
Yeah.
You take Sam Darnold. You wrap it up with a little bit of Tucker Kraft. Beautiful.
I would take him on a Packers team, or maybe even on a Vikings team. But like the argument alone that he's leverage, a lot of guys are quote leverage.
But at tight end, so if we think about what we need, right? What's the point of all of this? It's a late round spike week that differentiates you from your pod or in the week 17 final. But in a lot of cases, it's just like, get me through one of these weeks, get me through week 15. And tight end gives us the lowest bar of that mattering. Like if he scores 2 touchdowns, you're the only one in the pod with him. That's huge. That's huge.
I agree. I just think you could say that for a lot of tight ends. Like Will Dissly is making $20 million over this year and the next 2 years. Could be the starting tight end. Michael Mayer, I just think he's good at football.
Michael Mayer, I would push back on specifically because he's with a rookie, right? Like I think in some ways, like Kraft being like the guy who missed the training camp period, but immediately came back and repped with the ones, could take that job more over the course of the year. Better bet to be back weighted. So you're getting, it's not, again, Theo Johnson is a much cleaner bet because he's a rookie and he will probably earn more.
I'm kind of stuck on this Theo Johnson thing. I mean, are you guys like really trying to take New York Football Giants in your drafts right now?
I mean,
I take someone.
I take
you don't have to.
Are you not
skipping
taking
out on
any
the
Tyrone Tracy either?
I'm taking
really.
Giants. Yeah, I'm not drafting.
I guess I take Tracy. I mean, I have the thing is that I have Tracy ranked behind other players that go after him, so it's not always clean to get him. I'm not like theoretically opposed, but like I already was the foremost Daniel Jones hater, like for like since he's been drafted. He's done nothing to prove me wrong. Like he's so bad, I'm even worried about Neighbors. Like not that I'm not taking Neighbors, but he's so bad, I'm worried that like a 32% target share for Neighbors might not get him there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's that interception that he threw to Jalen Petrie in the first preseason game, that is the type of stuff that leads to a guy getting benched because he's got no confidence. If you're not,
I hope he gets benched. Get Drew Lock in there.
Drew Lock also.
Drew Lock is hurt. Drew Lock suffered like a bad shoulder injury in the first.
He said he'll be back for week 1 though.
He did prior to the injury. He did.
What's his outlook for week 17?
Yeah. I guess Theo is fine if you think he can run a Cade Otton number of routes.
I mean, they were using him in tight end screens and stuff too. This offense might be so bad that it is all right. It's checkdowns to Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy, and it's screens to Theo Johnson, and then we throw the ball to Malik Neighbors, and that's it. That's the whole offense. We're and 10. We're X down and 10 always because they can't gain any yards.
I struggle to see Theo Johnson really carving out a role. Like Darius Slayton, for all that people want to hit him, has led the team for the past 5 years, has 700 plus.
That sounds bullish for him carving out a role. Darius Slayton's a total jag.
If Darius Slayton was such a jag, I think he wouldn't be this consistently mediocre. I think that he'll
I agree. He's consistently mediocre.
I have a bet where I have the Darius Slayton side of it. And he's a Jag, man. He's just the whole point of Darius Slayton is that he's a Jag.
Okay.
And other guys are worse than Jags.
For Darius Slayton, being a Jag has been a windfall of money. Quite literally made him millions of dollars over a career. Doesn't mean he's not a Jag. Guy's total Jag.
When you're a Jag, you're just a guy. But you're a guy. You're a guy.
He is a guy.
How confident are you how confident are you that Theo Johnson can surpass that as like someone that gets more than 250, 350 receiving yards?
Very low. Insanely
that's
low.
Where I'm at.
Lower than low. Yeah. I would here's a sounds like Mattek hyperbole, but it's not. I would straight up rather have one of the Chiefs' backup tight ends than Theo Johnson.
Yeah, no. Do that. I don't think the thing is Theo doesn't need to surpass Darius Slayton as a talent. Like Cade Otton didn't surpass Mike Evans as a talent, but he put up a bunch of he put up more yards than his talent would indicate because he got all the snaps. Like Cade Otton is also totally a Jag to this point in his career. Maybe he gets better, but last year he was totally just a guy who played snaps. It wasn't better than Mike Evans. It wasn't better than Chris Godwin, but you play all the snaps at tight end, and you get targets.
It's real Daniel Bellinger erasure. I mean, Daniel Bellinger and Theo Johnson had the same rap.
The Giants are erasing Daniel Bellinger.
This is why we like Theo, because they're playing him over Bellinger, and he's a rookie, and the season hasn't even started. So
they drafted him highly. Like when they started, when they pulled that big pink eraser out at the draft, early in the draft, and they were like, let's start getting Daniel Bellinger out of the
really
lineup.
Athletic. Like I didn't like Theo Johnson that much as a prospect. Sometimes I think people get a little.
No, you didn't like him. This was your whole thing. Yeah.
But look, I mean, it's tight end. There's wide error bands here. I get tilted by the prospect community's just like absolute love of the most athletic guy. Like, hey, this other guy finished second most athletic. Are you interested? And they're like, no, only the guy who scored a 10 in Racz. I'm like, all right, that doesn't seem like the best process to me. But the guy who's 10 in Racz, I don't want to ignore just because I'm tilted at the prospect bros.
All right, Noah Gray
or over 1.5 receiving touchdowns. Theo Johnson this year.
Over.
Way
2.5.
Over.
No.
That's right.
Dude, Daniel Bellinger had 2 touchdowns and his eye got smashed in halfway through the season.
Wasn't one of those on the Wildcat, the Packers?
I don't know. Daniel.
I mean, I think Theo Johnson
have Daniel Bellinger's touchdowns memorized. I'm sorry.
Theo Johnson is live for that kind of use. I mean, you saw how they were using him in the preseason, right? Like they wanted to just get him the ball and let him do stuff. I mean, granted, the hurdle he attempted was really ill-advised, but he's fun. He is the Jake Ferguson bet of last year, except he's a rookie.
No, so except this one thing. When the one thing is Daniel Jones instead of Dak.
Yes, that was what I was getting to on a much worse offense. but you can listen. The Giants play shitty teams too. Okay, the Giants do play some shitty teams this year. There will be games where they actually find a way to score some points. Not many, but they play some shitty teams too.
I think you're just trying to hit too much of an uncorrelated parlay there. I'd rather just whoever my quarterback is, I'll backfill my tight end 3 with them if possible. I'll take Tucker Kraft with Jordan Love because hey, I don't need Tucker Kraft to be good. I just need the weeks that Jordan Love throws touchdown. Kraft is way more likely to catch on. Theo Johnson, I'm not taking him with Daniel Jones due to late season benching risk at this point with how bad he's looked. I think Dawson Knox his touchdown prop should be far higher than Theo Johnson, easy to stack with Josh Allen. So I think Johnson's a tough sell, though I get the yardage upside of he could be the number 3 probably on the third.
Noah Gray last season for the Kansas City Chiefs, 41 targets, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, what kind of odds would you give me that Theo Johnson beats him in half PPR points? It'd be minus 180. It wouldn't be minus 400.
I don't think that's what we care about, though. We care about the ceiling outcome where it's oh my God, Theo Johnson's actually pretty good. And they're really the pass catchers on the Giants are Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson. That's what you're playing for. And it doesn't have to be all that likely for it to be really good.
Wandale will out target him and Hyatt will score more fantasy points than him.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Hyatt might, but the points that you get, if it's at all close, you want Theo because of the tight end.
Right, he's a tight end.
And I think it probably will be close because Hyatt's had trouble dusting Darius Slayton, who again is a Jag.
Hey, Jalen Hyatt led the NFL in yards per reception last year. It's just
yeah, it was a good catch. It was a good
catch. I am trying to take fewer marginal players on bad teams this year in my
Well, the argument is that he's not marginal.
Because he's a rookie. Yeah, we don't
know if he's marginal.
That's why we
marginal.
take rookies.
We just don't know.
We
just don't know.
We know beyond a shadow of doubt, Dawson Knox is marginal. Like, he is the backup tight end. We know that most likely Tucker Kraft is marginal. Even if he does end up starting, he's a committee starter. If you're looking for a guy who can hit 90% of the routes in a game, preferably in week 17, Theo is probably one of the best bets in this end of the draft. I think that's the entire argument. It's not that he's going to outscore Darius Slayton or Wandale. It's not that we know for sure he's good.
Tight end.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Otton in his rookie year caught 42 passes, nearly 400 yards at tight end. That's good for your third tight end in the 18th round when not everyone has even drafted this guy.
And it's going to be back-weighted most likely.
Yeah.
You know, he'll if he's any good, he'll earn more over the course of the year because it's coming out of Daniel Bellinger and Lawrence Ager and stuff. He's going to take routes if he's good. So your odds, when does he score the points? It's most likely at the end of the season. I don't know. I mean, we just saw last year, numerous rookie tight ends who
Green Bay's backup tight ends. Green Bay's backup tight end, whichever one it ends up being between Musgrave and Kraft's going to score more points than Theo Johnson.
Well, speaking of Musgrave and Kraft, the whole bet last year with Musgrave was oh wow, he's already the starting tight end. He won't have all the routes, but he's established himself as a starting tight end. Last year we didn't take Jordan Love that much higher than we're taking Daniel Jones now.
Love was a meaningfully better pick.
He was a meaningfully better pick.
Sure.
You're right. But it's not like we had a ton of confidence in this offense last year.
Some of us did, but
yeah.
Oh.
And look, I mean, the Giants' chances of turning into last year's Packers are approximately 0%. But there's upside in a rookie, in a very athletic rookie tight end who's a step. To me, the fact that he came in and said, they were Spider-Man meme, Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, but not to the Giants during training camp because they're actually this guy's the starter. We're going to be putting him ahead pretty much right away. That's meaningful to me. That I'm excited about that. I don't know if it's going to pay off.
Think about how excited we'd be about Ben Sinnott if Ben Sinnott was the starter right now and he can't get on the field over Zach Ertz.
He will though. In week 7, after he's paid off his tag in the big board, then it'll be Ben Sinnott time.
Well, hang on, because he's also behind. Is it Cole Turner that he's behind? Because he's the third.
Cole Turner is an NPC. That's not happening. Ben Sinnott is their.
But
starting
Daniel
fullback,
Bellinger
so
is a mark no one could pass. Truly an end boss of Elden Ring.
Hey, Daniel Bellinger's a 9.89 RAS guy.
So is Theo.
Yes, and Theo's 10, and that's higher. All right, let's move on to. We said, all right, let's see. Chiefs backfield.
Are we back in on CEH?
No. Crane, you really inspired me the other day with your Carson Steele tweet. I already started to take him a bunch. It was one of those where I see a tweet and that influences my direct draft strategy. Okay. And then he had that 34-yard run with the 1-yard run after it. And all the Chiefs beat writers are Prince is going to the practice squad. CH is making the team. It is what it is. I just am I'm just taking Carson Steele now. What are we gonna we gonna ignore this? It's such a the vibes are just too good.
Davis, I'm pretty sure I could tweet about Cornell Powell and get you to move him up.
Cornell Powell was fun at Clemson.
It's Nico Remigio season. Well, the thing, you guys know this. It's you'll kind of be predisposed in a spot, but you need permission. You need permission from someone else in the cabal to be there. And once someone else in the cabal is we're taking Carson Steele, I'm get in, losers. I'm going to do 9% Carson Steele by the time the season starts. I hope so.
Well, so from the preseason stuff, I was looking at Nathan Yankee stuff. He thinks that that Deneric Prince ends up making the team, I think.
Nah, he's wrong. Yankee, really good for the data and stuff, but he's wrong. All the Nate Taylor, Paul Sweeney, and Haley Lewis are 3 of the best Chiefs beat writers, and all of them
Sweeney's incredible too. They have a few good writers. Sweeney's really good. Sorry.
Yes. They all have Prince practice squad at best with Carson Steele, just no question, straight up making the roster now.
His contention was that they might keep 4 running backs because Steele is a fullback, essentially.
But so I think Steele being a fullback is more like a bonus for Andy Reid than what I want to keep for run, particularly because I don't think Prince is going to do the kickoffs. If Prince was going to do the kickoffs, it would be the Pacheco thing all over again. This is actually not Galaxy Brain. This is just like real football. I think the reason why Steele is the big favorite is that he actually is a fullback, which means, not that I've broken down Carson Steele pass pro, but if he is really a fullback, I mean, basically Jerick McKinnon was a fullback. If you look at the way he was deployed, the snaps he would play, the routes he would run, like not that he was lining, not that he wore 42 and lined up, 3 feet away, but it was like he'd run these dumb routes to the flat that like it's like the same route that Brock Bowers ran in that preseason game. That's what McKinnon would do.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked about maybe Carson Steele taking on just some of the passing down work, essentially.
Exactly.
It's not going to stylistically look like McKinnon, but the literal downs McKinnon played, he could actually be out there for those. Maybe he ends up pass blocking more than he ends up running the routes that McKinnon did.
It sounds like Dare Ogunbowale is kind of what we're talking about.
Dare Ogunbowale, but on the Chiefs.
I mean,
and maybe a little bit more pop in the running game.
I was going to say, was dead like Jerick McKinnon that much better than Dare Ogunbowale at 31 with 9 knee injuries?
Yes.
He was.
Steele
had dead legs.
He still scored touchdowns, man.
Put Dare in that situation.
1,600 rushing yards
nothing
at Ball State. 1,600 rushing yards in one season at Ball State.
That is wild.
It's not nothing. That's more than Deneric Prince had in his entire college career, by the way.
To Davis's point, I think Carson Steele is a fullback plus. Like, he can play some of that passing downs work. He was a true, like Davis was pointing out, he's a true running back in college. I didn't think he was going to play fullback in the NFL to that point when I was doing like my dynasty rankings. So I think he will end up, like, look at him. He's definitely playing some fullback, and they've run him at fullback in the preseason and in training camp, but they've also run him at running back, and he looks really good when they run him at running back. So I think he'll be a fullback plus. If you list him as fullback, I'd bet he would be the NFL favorite to lead fullbacks in carries, essentially, because he's going to be more than that. And at that point, like, I do think this guy is kind of 18th round draftable. It's thin, but it's,
so we took him last night in the main event. And in that format, I think he's a very strong last round pick because you get the take ahead look. If you're not familiar with the main event, the drafts actually run after the Thursday and Friday night games, and so you don't have to choose your starting lineup until after those games. So and the Chiefs obviously play before that, so you're gonna literally know if Carson Steele like scored a touchdown in that game. You can plug him in your lineup, but more importantly, you're gonna know like how many snaps.
What's this guy's role?
Mm-hmm.
What's this guy's role? And so you get a chance like really before the tournament even starts to cut him if you want to cut him, and that and the fact that you can cut him at some point obviously just makes him a much better managed league pick. Locking him onto my roster for the entire tournament in best ball is a little more concerning, but like I guess I am, if he's the fullback, he looks like
Andy Reid has almost always used a fullback. I believe in only like 2 or 3 of his seasons, one of which was last year, but in 2 or 3 of his seasons as a head coach, both with the Eagles and then now.
And they played Noah Gray some fullback snaps last year, but the real reason they couldn't keep a fullback was they had 7 wide receivers active sometimes. Yeah. Like
I think they had at some point they had Michael Burton, and then he left, and then they had Anthony Sherman, and they used like true fullback Anthony Sherman, true fullback Michael Burton. So Reid has in nearly every one of his seasons had a fullback. They didn't last year, like you said, they were just keeping more players at other positions, but it would be a surprise just looking at the broad history of Andy Reid if his teams did not have a fullback going forward, because they almost always have. So I think he's like 90+% to make the roster at this point, because he fills a position that they typically use and was really freaking good in the preseason. And the guys who he could also maybe play over suck. Yeah, he's like almost certainly making the roster.
But he fills a position that doesn't matter for us. Like Anthony Sherman had, how many games do you think Anthony Sherman has in his career where he rushed more than 10 yards?
3. Yeah, no, you need him to take some Jerick McKinnon role, because it's
1.
Yeah.
How many yards?
How many touchdowns do you think Anthony Sherman had in his entire career?
Oh God, 3.
He played 153 games.
Oh God.
How many touchdowns did he have?
Worth noting, Anthony Sherman
it was the same game where he had the 40 yards.
So he's a spike.
you get that one from
spike
Carson
week
Steele?
guy.
You got one spike
Spike
week.
is a spike week guy.
I will tell you, I had a showdown lineup in the Super Bowl. I think it was 2 seasons ago now, where I
Yep.
needed 1 yard from Anthony Sherman, and I would have shipped with a 3-way chop in it's a 400,000 person showdown contest, so only 3 dupes is insane. And the Chiefs are like killing clock, and I'm like, oh please, just let them. Maybe it's an Anthony Sherman fullback dive for 1 yard for $400,000 for me, and it could not happen. So I'm a little traumatized by Chiefs fullbacks.
Call the number.
Anthony Sherman, by the way, played linebacker in college. He had 48 receptions, 17 rushes. So it's not. It's
All
not
right,
the
next
same.
topic. Next topic.
I mean, to close out the Carson Steele thing, though, I think that he's a better pick in 20-round formats, right? Like where you're really
Sure.
getting down. When you're looking at like, should I draft whoever I think the Colts RB2 is? Like maybe you just take maybe you just take Steele instead there. I think the same thing applies to Kraft. Like Kraft, I'm probably not taking on underdog. I don't really think it makes a ton of sense. On FFPC, makes a bunch of sense. On DraftKings, you could sell him in a build where I'm like totally punting tight end and I'm taking like a 4th. Maybe Tucker Kraft is my 4th. But yeah, I feel like those are more 20-round format type of guys.
I actually do think Steele is a pretty solid pick. As much as so my concern is if Pacheco doesn't get hurt, I think he might be just like a straight up 0. Like in a way that like Will Shipley would have a much better chance of hitting my lineup over the course of the season than Steele potentially.
Steele's preseason usage to me has been good enough that he could just be straight up a fullback and they're just trying stuff out in the preseason.
Right.
But he's gotten a decent amount of true running back snaps in the preseason. I agree, though. If he is purely a fullback, as you pointed out, that guy literally just doesn't crack your lineup. It will not matter in the end. But like looking at how they've used him, and he was a literal running back in college, just purely a running back. I do think he has that like the third stringer cracks your lineup once or twice a year sort of non-zero potential. But I agree, it's risky that he could just straight up be a 0, even if he's playing snaps.
So, but to the point of this, so in the preseason game, Prince. This is per Nathan Yaki. Prince started over Steele, took all the snaps on the first drive, then didn't return to the game. So we're not worried that, like, I guess the concern would be if Prince makes the roster. Like, I think it really comes down to if Prince makes the roster. Because if Prince doesn't make the roster, then I do think Steele is a good pick. Because if Pacheco gets hurt, it's him versus CEH. Maybe they bring back Prince off the practice squad or something. But you would have a better chance of him having value in contingent scenarios. If it's a 4-man and he's the fullback in that 4-man backfield, like, I don't know. What do we win when we win kind of thing? I'm really
There's a reason he goes in the
but
18th round.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We've said all we can say on Carson Steele. How much Carson Steele are you going to have, Davis?
I mean, honest to God, I'm gonna try and get to like 5% maybe. Like obviously, I'm 700 drafts in, so getting to 5% is it's hard to turn around the Titanic.
Yeah.
But
You'll try. You will try.
Yeah. It's like what? Oh, it's like, I'm gonna take another Theo Johnson team. It's like round 18 is so bad now. Like round 18 is like destitute. Like guys that we were taking in round 18 for most of the summer. Like you get one, like Jordan Whittington catches 4 passes in a preseason game. He's like a round 15 pick now.
Well, so early in the offseason, I didn't know what to do in round 18. I'd take some rookies and stuff, but I'm like, I'm going to mix in some of these guys who are injured but are going to be back weighted, like Kendrick Bourne and like Keaton Mitchell. And now I don't know what to do all the time again. And so I'm just doing that again, right? I haven't done Mitchell so much, but I have taken Bourne.
Bourne's a good pick, I think.
Yeah, because Baker is kind of fell on his face. So if it's not going to be Baker, that makes it more likely Bourne has a role at the end of the year. But Keaton Mitchell's another guy where like the Rasheen Ali and what's the other dude? Owen Wright, I think. Owen Wright. Yeah, they seem to be battling it out. So the Ali steam never materialized. And then Justice Hill seems to be the RB2. So Justice Hill being the RB2 was the best case scenario for Keaton Mitchell. That's how he gets back on the field at the end of the year. So any interest in either of those injured guys?
Yeah, I'm happy to mix in Keaton, probably only on teams where there's some correlation boost, but strong pick. Think he easily, if he's healthy, outplays Justice Hill and could take part of Henry's workload, and the contingent value of Henry misses time late season is really strong based on how Keaton looked.
I mean, he was the only, he didn't get enough carries to qualify, but he was the only player more efficient than Ivana Chan last season running the ball. I think he finished with over 8 yards a carry. And that was when, Justice Hill was healthy. He was there in the backfield last year, and Keaton Mitchell was making Justice Hill lose snaps for him last season. So Justice Hill being there is, like Pat said, that's the best run out you possibly could get for Keaton Mitchell. He's not going to help you early because he's injured. He's going to come back, probably halfway through the season or something.
Yeah, you're not kidding about the his efficiency. He only had 47 carries, so take it with a lot of salt. But he finished 4th in rush yards over expected for NFL Next Gen. Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, James Conner, and then Keaton Mitchell.
Rush yards over expected total or rush yards over expected per carry?
Not
it's
per attempt.
because he had like a 71-yard touchdown run or something, and I believe he got hit behind the line of scrimmage on that one, if I'm picturing the
run that added.
They were all over expected. Yeah.
Well, no, that's literally how it works.
I know, but I'm saying the projected one for that is 4. So it added getting hit behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Added 6 yards to it.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty impressive. I liked him as a prospect. I was extremely woke to Rasheen Ali as a prospect, not so much woke to Owen Wright. So, Rasheen will probably make the roster as the 3rd and then just never play, and then Keaton will come back whenever he comes back. In my mind, I was like, oh, Rasheen Ali is going to play good enough that he'll get the rotational grinder stuff behind Derrick Henry instead of Justice Hill, but I don't think that's going to happen now.
Yeah, I think Rasheen Ali is probably the Tyler Beatty of Justice Hills.
I mean, the last stuff I saw, because I wanted a reason to draft Rasheen Ali.
Yeah,
I had to think about it, and yes.
Yeah.
I've been wanting a reason to draft Rasheen Ali because when he was flashing at the Senior Bowl, I was like, oh, this guy looks fun. Then he tore his bicep. And he goes to the Ravens and he's rehabbing, and they were saying he's not even a lock to Owen. I don't even remember Owen's last name. He's that much of
Wright.
Owen Wright. Thank you. They were saying he is the favorite to make the roster. The last I saw, over Rasheen Ali. So but the fact that it's a competition between those two players really makes me think that it's a waste. It is Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and then an absolute chasm. And so that's why we're interested in Keaton Mitchell.
And Mitchell was drafted early in the summer, but really stopped being drafted for a while. So I think, he hasn't been on the radar for a long time. And we talk about leverage and the idea of you get to the end with a player no one else has. But I do think he's kind of interesting where you might get into a pod where someone else has Keaton Mitchell, but it's a May team. And so you're sort of I'm bringing my August team to your May team and see which had the better values ultimately. So he won't be he wasn't completely undrafted in the early period. But
yeah, I think with a lot of these, he's a leverage play. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What is he going to do? Score 14 points and big leverage. I scored 14. Dude, Keaton Mitchell, give that guy 15 touches and he might drop 30 points. So not only do you show up, sure, you can show up to the final with anyone who no one else has. It's pretty easy. Draft a whole bunch of teams and
draft 10 teams.
Players.
Still have leverage.
Yeah, exactly. You can draft.
They won't because they won't get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the 18th round, you could just draft dead players and probably still make the final.
Sure.
How many of my 91 auto drafted teams last night advanced to the semifinals of the Puppy 3? That'd be a good line.
What's the round 1 advance?
I was just going to ask to run the numbers,
12,
honestly.
right?
No, after. So just
he said
12?
semifinals.
Oh, the semifinals. The semifinals.
Yeah.
I think it's Best Ball Mania is 1 of 13. I'm not sure of the Puppy.
So is the line
don't be fucking nerds about it. Just
2.
I was going to say 0.
One of 10. So let's see.
1.
I'll go one. Yeah,
I think if I get one to the semifinals of auto drafting 91 teams, that's totally fine. Like that I'm like, that is a fair. I would have made that deal with myself last night when I clicked enter on 91 fast drafts.
Back to the point though, Keaton Mitchell, good leverage. You can take him and he can show up completely unowned and then absolutely nuke. A lot of guys like, yeah, they're not getting drafted very often. Don't care. There's a reason they're not getting drafted often. I think Keaton Mitchell doesn't fall into that category of like, oh, you're really scaring me showing up with 1% of some loser. He can show up and just break the slate. We've seen him do it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the people with Theo Johnson's 3 catches, 21 yards, 0 red zone work. I'm worried about Keaton Mitchell in the 18th round.
What if we get the red zone work though, Daniel? Are you worried then?
I mean, they'll have 1 red zone trip a game.
I was going to say they're not making it to the red zone.
Like, to get red zone work, you have to be on a team that can reach the red zone, Pat.
Your Theo Johnson hate has been noted.
I think the comments are going to side with Daniel.
I get it.
Keaton Mitchell, coming off an ACL tear, really small sample, not like a great prospect that we were excited about at all. He flashed, but it could be a mirage. And Justice Hill's probably the backup. So I don't know. I'm trying to say there's some real risk of 0 here, but I do agree that there's upside because like what he flashed was pretty special actually.
Isn't Justice Hill like a similarly good selection because he has not been drafted for the entirety of it and he's just Justice Hill and like he's now entered into his Samaj P. Ryan era.
He's Samaj.
So you know how I said there's some players that haven't been drafted that do not scare me at all if you show up with? You've nailed it. You've really found one that
go look what Justice Hill
P-Ryan,
did in week 17 last year, buddy.
I know. I had Justice Hill teams in the final in week 7. I was the person who had the most Justice Hill out of anyone last season. I had the most dollars on Justice Hill across all platforms. There's no one that had more. And I'm telling you,
how much did you have?
Too much.
Gonna have to call the Guinness Book of World Records for sack here.
Yeah, I know. It's like
I thought that I had the absolute nut run out halfway through week 1. I'm like, oh my God, the thesis, it's coming early. Justice Hill is about to get all the work. And halfway through week 1, he was getting the goal line work. Like he looked like he was stepping in and taking the JK Dobbins role. And he got the nut run out and it was borderline useless. Like
there's no Gus Edwards on this team. If the JK Dobbins analog gets injured this year, it's JK Dobbins and guys who Harbaugh will not trust.
Yeah, I'm just saying like
not saying I'm clicking Justice Hill. I just am being a devil's advocate.
Yeah, he had the nut run out last year and still could not do anything or earn work. Like I think if Derrick Henry goes down, we're not just getting. We're learning. Yeah, we're learning a name. Yeah, Dalvin Cook, come on down.
Justice Hill had. I mean, he literally did have 22 PPR points in week 17.
Say 22.
No, yeah, he was. You think I didn't victory lap that?
I started him. I started him in a 16-team Dynasty League final and I won.
Justice Hill. Like why aren't you victory lapping it now though? I mean, he had over 100 total yards. He had 5 targets, 5 catches.
Because we saw the best run out, and like if we had gotten that like a couple games, if we had gotten a couple spike games, it'd be like, okay, yeah, he's live enough to be able to do this.
He scored 2 touchdowns in week 1. Now he did run for 9 yards on 8 attempts.
Yes, so that's why I'm not all over the Justice Hill bet again, because you got the nut run out. He really, really couldn't do anything with it. He did have the 1 spike game, but like a lot of guys have the ability to do that 1 spike game if given the opportunity, right? And he got the opportunity for the whole season and could only get it once. So I would just rather bet on Keaton Mitchell coming and being like, I now know very, very clearly what Justice Hill is, so just let me do the Keaton Mitchell thing instead.
You guys taking Keaton Mitchell or Carson Steele?
Carson Steele.
Keaton.
Ownership, like literally like 50% to 2%.
Yeah, I think I'm not taking 0 Carson Steele, but I definitely would take more Keaton Mitchell than Carson Steele.
I had to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's close. I mean, the thing about Carson Steele, like if he's not a fullback, he's a smash, and if he's a fullback, he's the worst pick on the board.
He's not the worst pick on the board. People are drafting Jahan Dotson.
Fair. Okay, let's do. Oh, Brenden Rice. Davis, you're our Brenden Rice stan.
I mean, it's already happened. Like what I thought was maybe going to happen in week 6, it's already there. Like DJ Shark, Jover, Josh Palmer, 95% of the routes, Jover, Ladd McConkey injured, already happened. Quentin Johnston catch a pass without his shoulders directly facing Justin Herbert challenge, failed. Like he's like already running with the starters. He's already running to the starters that Harbaugh had to invoke the ghost of Semi Fehoko to keep it from just saying Brenden Rice is a starter. Semi Fehoko got drafted by the Cowboys when I was still a Cowboys fan, like 9 years ago. It's not it's Brenden Rice week 1, 57% route participation for the Chargers.
But I was going to bring up Fehoko though, because it's not just Harbaugh. Popper had him. Daniel Popper, the Athletic, had Fehoko and Rice competing for a roster spot.
And Fehoko is a special teamer. So that this is, people always laugh at me when my ideas are too good. I did this all the way back when we were doing big board content. I said it's actually bullish for Rice to be a day 3 pick instead of a UDFA with no special teams, no returns.
So did you look up? Did you look that up, or do you know if he played special teams in college? Did you look it up? Did you?
I would be shocked if he played special teams in college.
He played a shit ton of special teams in college.
That's bullish. That's bullish. Now
it was just bearish. It was just bearish.
I literally, Kyle, this is crazy. You could have got me on a bet right there. If you would have approached that in a different way, I would have been like, no chance Jerry Rice's kid played a down.
It would have been immoral. I would have been just stealing money from you. Obviously, I knew the answer.
Did he? He didn't return though, so we would have just.
He was not a returner. He was a gunner type, I believe.
Okay.
That's even kind of more in the trenches.
I know it's grimier.
Yeah. Imagine telling Jerry Rice's kid, "You go gun on the punt team."
Dude, imagine being Jerry Rice's kid and being like, "I'm going to go gun on the punt team." Like this dude just puts in the work.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like Jerry Rice put in that work too. He played till he was freaking 40 and was going for 1,000 yards. He wasn't like this diva who like flamed, he was high and he flamed out.
Do you think this is why Brenden Rice was not a 5-star wide receiver recruit? Because his dad was actually just playing football instead of teaching him how to play football. And that had Jerry Rice retired younger, Jerry Rice Jr. and Brenden Rice would have been better players because they would have had more time to learn from their dad.
Wow. The Brenden Rice segment has probably been my favorite part of this whole podcast.
It's my favorite segment of the summer, I think.
It's a vibes-based summer. The vibes-based takes have been serving me very well. 50% of Jerry Rice with a quarterback who leads the NFL in pass attempts per game since he got drafted.
You just calling him Jerry now? He's just become
50. He's 50%.
Genetically, he is 50%.
I thought you were going to have 50% of him. Okay.
Yeah, that's factual.
That is factual.
And I hate every other Chargers wide receiver. I mean, I guess I don't hate Ladd, but like, had he not gone to the Chargers, I would not be drafting him at wide receiver 45 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if he was on the Patriots, he'd probably wide receiver 30 for me.
If he was on the Patriots going where Jalen Polk was going, I might have 100%.
I would have 100% Ladd.
Yeah, no bits.
Yeah.
But we all collectively, we as a fantasy football community, we hate every Chargers wide receiver. They've all been bad in the NFL, right? I mean, has any of them been...
not good. Fajoko's
Palmer's a guy. I mean, Palmer's.
If Rice can play,
he's the Darius Slayton of Jalen Guyton's.
I was gonna say
if
Darius Slayton was a Charger and Josh Palmer, like they swap places, Slayton's probably
same ADPs.
Yeah,
same ADPs.
Yeah.
You might not even be able to tell the difference, honestly.
Yeah.
If you just put them in each other's jerseys.
What you're hoping?
If Slayton is a Jag, then pick him out of a lineup from Josh Palmer.
What we're hoping is that Brenden Rice can be the Miles Austin of Denarius Moore's. That's sort of the general vibe that we're going for.
That would be pretty sweet.
Now Miles Austin didn't play until year 3 But it was this. It would like football was different then. Guys didn't really get up. Like rookie wide receivers would take them in the first round, and they wouldn't play. I this kind of originated as a bit, but I like truly honestly believe this now. Like he just is going to be in their 3 wide sets.
Didn't Miles Austin just get suspended for betting on games as the Jets coach?
Oh, that does kind of sound familiar. I think
he was definitely doing some betting when he was the Jets wideout coach. And
Miles Austin betting. Yes, correct.
I mean, to give the bull case for Brenden Rice, I mean, you have kind of an eerily similar setup that we saw with the Rams last season, where you have a very, at the very least competent, likely very, very good quarterback throwing the ball, right? You have a huge target vacuum. There's no one there to earn the target. So you're just saying, can a guy with the widest range of outcomes on the depth chart come in here? And if he's good, if I hit that, 90+%, I win a lot then. And, Ladd feels like the much more likely bet for that to happen. But I feel like if you're taking Ladd McConkey, who definitely is the better prospect than Brenden Rice, you also, the transitive property applies then to Brenden Rice, where it's also probably a good click, especially because he's free and was going undrafted. So he's definitely someone worth mixing in.
If he's like not at risk of getting cut, then he's a great click. He's a great click. I mean, we talk about guys.
Where do we rank him if Harbaugh comes out and says today we've locked Rice in for a roster spot, it's legally binding, he is here. Where do you take him? This was
they get married.
Legally.
Where do you take him? Because when you said that, I was like, that's the good hypothetical, right? Is how high does he go if he is just guaranteed to be on the 53? He goes really freaking high for me.
I mean, hot take. I think I'd rather have him than Jalen Tolbert.
Oh, not hot.
Yeah.
Not hot.
Yeah,
not hot in any way. Jalen Tolbert is not anyone's kid. I mean, he's someone's kid, but not anyone I care about.
Jalen Tolbert's parents just listening to this podcast doing the I think you should leave. What the hell?
Yeah.
Well, on Brenden Rice, like Puka now in LA, do you think he's doing a breakfast club with any of the Chargers rookie wideouts? Can we get like the beat reporters to give that as Puka meeting with them?
Well, the Chargers beat reporters aren't going to tell us anything about that. They're not.
Chargers beat writers going to be like, Kimani who?
The latest article on training camp is about. It's got a lot of Brenden Rice in it. Herbert's throwing to him. Rice just saying, "Here's a quote from Rice, bro. He got a cannon." Talking about Justin Herbert.
Can I provide some context to that quote?
Go ahead.
That was Brenden Rice talking about a pass that he was not able to catch from Justin Herbert.
Not helpful.
Not as bullish. Yeah.
I just like if I get to bet against DJ Shark, who's like 80% owned in this tournament, Quentin Johnston, who's like 95% owned in this tournament, Palmer, who's 100%, and like, look, I'm taking Ladd, but shorting Ladd is like totally fine on some like. It's a profile I kind of hate.
Like, I think betting against Ladd with other teams makes a lot of sense. Like you don't have to. It's an uncertain wide receiver situation. So I'm taking Ladd, but I also don't mind if I don't have Ladd being like, what if Ladd fails? But I guess like Brenden Rice is not a lock to make the roster, which makes him potentially a terrible pick. So you talk about the wide range of outcomes, Zach. Like it's a little wider than I would like right now. But I mean, I don't know if he were to get rested for the final preseason game, like I'm really, really in. And I guess I wouldn't, isn't the right way to play Rice to kind of like be a little cautious right now for like 2 more days and then hammer if he looks like he's going to make the roster?
Yeah. Dude, if he makes the roster.
The amount of time you have to get Rice teams in though is pretty short. That's true. Those 2 days kind of matter. Like those 2 days might be 40 additional Rice teams, So
that's a good point.
I mean, if you're doing it in the 18th round, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about like him versus Jermaine Burton, let's say, like Burton is down the depth chart. but he's making the roster. Rice seems to be in the mix, but he might not make the roster if he, they've got to decide, what do we value more, having this guy play some for us early in the season or Fehoko on special teams. So it's like a kind of a tricky, like, how do you guys like think through that type of difference?
Well, I'm more confident that Jermaine Burton's good. Like, I think Jermaine Burton's legitimately good. I don't know that Brenden Rice is legitimately good.
No, Jermaine Burton, the coaches like legit hate him. Did you guys catch that on the broadcast last night? They said he's been sleeping through meetings.
What? Are you serious?
Oh, I mean, okay,
So Kirk Herbstreit said this. It was very offhanded, like he expected the viewers to know what they were talking about.
Well, I was going to say, if you follow college football, you would have this preconceived notion of who Jermaine Burton is as a guy coaches don't like.
So it sounded like what he was saying was he's been sleeping through meetings as a Bengal. He might have meant sleeping through meetings in college, but it was enough to be like, I mean, there's a reason he's playing with Logan Woodside in the last preseason games opposite Kwame Lassiter. Like, I don't think that Jermaine Burton has done much to endear himself to his new coaches, whereas Andre Yoshivas, guy went to Princeton. Like, fucking NFL coaches are going to love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Burton washed. I mean, Brugler had a note on him, like how many different schools he played at. I think going back to high school, like he bounced around.
He's just one of those guys. He's Josh Gordon. He's just kind of a dick.
He was
Josh Gordon got high a lot. I don't think he was a dick.
Now, Josh Gordon, it seemed like later in his career that even when the weed suspension stopped, people didn't love having him in the building.
Well, listen, if I got suspended for like 8 years because I smoked weed, I might be harder to be around for that.
Valid. I believe Burton was it like Giants Hard Knocks, who we saw their board, and who's one of the very few players who had the red tag, as in just like character concern. Like, we just don't know if this guy is like committed to football, frankly. And I don't know.
What about Rice versus a Jalen Hyatt? Rotational deep threat, but he's going to be on the roster.
Definitely Rice right now.
I kind of think Rice.
I moved Rice up to wide receiver 82, which is like more aggressive than you guys would be, but I want to press this spot because I think it's also a spot of believing.
We have him. I've been moving him up during this. I've got him up to wide receiver 84, so not too. What about him versus Whittington?
That's the thing, is like, what do you win when you win with Whittington? And it's like, if Kupp and Puka stay healthy, you win nothing. But if one of them goes down, you win Puka times 2 again, maybe.
You might win kind of DeMarcus Robinson-y production,
but they have DeMarcus
production.
But they have DeMarcus Robinson.
That's no impediment.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of teams have had DeMarcus Robinson and then forgot they had him.
So everything from Rams camp, like Jordan Rodriguez has been on this, is like they really like DeMarcus Robinson. And we saw that last year. They were like 100% routes, DeMarcus Robinson. Congrats. And like, do I think
they like Whittington a lot too, though?
They do, but if they liked him so much, they would have drafted him earlier, I would assume.
Well, his prospect profile was kind of terrible.
Awful. It was terrible. He was a terrible prospect.
But they get him in the building, and then they're like, they've talked about all summer.
Yeah, the Ravens got him in the building. The Chiefs had him in the building. Mahomes had him in the building.
Oh, I'm talking Whittington. Yeah. But
I thought you were saying D-Rob. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you get someone with a little bit of juice, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. This is interesting.
This is interesting. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I struggle with it because he's a 7th round, or what was it, 7th round right prospect, bad prospect, who has a guy ahead of him that team seems to like, and they do not rotate that receiver 3. They play the same thing they do every snap all game. So he just has to straight up supplant the veteran. The veteran's not very good, but also he would still also have to supplant Tutu if Tutu makes the roster. So he feels very much like a Carson Steele could make the roster and be 0 the entire year. He feels like a good bet to make the roster and be 0 weeks 1 through 18.
On the rookie wideouts, Giants had 3 fantasy relevant players with character red flags. Care to guess who they were?
I think I know that.
They're all rookie wide receivers?
No.
Oh.
2 wide receivers and I believe 1 tight end.
One's a tight end.
It'd be really funny if Caleb had a character red flag.
No, the tight end was
AD Mitchell,
I believe.
AD Mitchell had to be one of them.
No, he was not.
Interesting.
That's awesome. Jaheim Bell was the tight end, I'm pretty sure. He was a transfer guy too.
Yeah, 3 Bama transfers, right?
Oh no, he wasn't a Bama. He was South Carolina. They played him at running back.
Okay.
And he didn't like that.
But both wideouts transferred from Bama.
Baker?
Yeah.
Baker was the other guy? Uh-oh.
Oh, duh, yeah, it was Javon Baker. There you go.
And he can't catch. That's two strikes.
Yeah.
They asked him, they're like, hey, how many reps do you get on the jugs machine a day? And he said, the what?
All right, rapid fire here because we got to get out of here in a couple minutes. Bills backfield and Chargers backfield. Want to ask you guys, I guess the Chargers backfield, real rapid fire. Are we taking Vidal again in best ball?
Moved him way up.
In
Moved
best
him up
ball.
like 20 spots. Overall.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see where we've got him. Vidal, let's say Vidal or like Damian Pierce.
Vidal.
Vidal.
Vidal or Estime.
Estime.
Yeah. I think I'm in agreement with both. All right. The other thing is that Ray Davis doesn't look to have locked up the number 2 role just yet. Ty Johnson's still in the mix. Do we care?
No.
A little.
I'll say maybe a little. I feel like at some point I thought Ray Davis could just be a 1-for-1 replacement, get 80% of the snaps if James Cook misses time. Now it feels a little more like it'll be a committee, but I still think he's a good pick. Like he's priced as if he's nothing, so that's fine.
He feels like a way to get very slightly younger Latavius Murray.
Ty Johnson?
No. Ray
Davis. Okay.
Ray Davis is going to be 30 by the time his rookie contract ends.
Right.
Is that right?
That's why I said. Yeah.
It's not exactly true, but it's close enough to be true.
I think he's actually 29 when his rookie contract ends.
Yeah. I think that's.
But yes, he's very slightly younger Latavius Murray.
Davis, if you didn't already have the Take Cast, you could start a podcast called Not Exactly True.
Not exactly true. Maybe I should change the name, honestly.
All right. I think we can so wait, on Ray Davis, I'll just would you have him like Chuba Hubbard, JK Dobbins, you're still taking him over those guys, right?
I'm JK over.
I'm on
Ray.
Dobbins.
Dobbins, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, if we were into Vidal, aren't we more into Dobbins? Less into Dobbins?
I could not have gone from 0 to 100 on a player faster than JK. I've selected him in 2 big dogs this last week. It's just he's definitely going to go to 0 at some point. But if he doesn't go to 0, if he somehow stays healthy for 17 games, he could finish RB6 overall.
And we talked about this all summer. We said we're not going to do JK Dobbins. He only got.
I thought he was going to show up to camp and be on pup. I thought him and Chubb would do the same thing. He's just playing.
Yeah, we said we're going to wait. If he is going to make the roster, then we're going to change. We're going to adjust our priors with the new information, and then we'll be in. And here we are. So I'm adjusting my priors, and I'm hammering. Yeah. I'm taking a lot of. I've gotten myself up to 6% JK Dobbins, and that's with over 1,000 teams. So that's a lot of JK Dobbins I've had to click.
You know where he's really good. If you max entered weekly winners slows when it was closing, he's like a nutted weekly winners pick, for real.
I've been
taking a lot of him in that.
Dobbins or Khalil Herbert?
Dobbins
or Jerome Ford?
Dobbins.
Yeah.
Dobbins or Algier?
Dobbins.
All right, you guys are pretty into Dobbins. I think the Vidal stuff doesn't help him, but
you don't need to do much to get a slappy back in on JK Dobbins. Once a slap, always a slap.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've got a long way to go to be able to martingale my JK Dobbins losses from last.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, he was a great pick last year, guys.
He was an incredible pick.
Yeah. All right, we got to get out of here. Check out legendaryupside.com. Got best ball rankings updated daily over there. Dynasty rankings updated weekly. Bunch of content rolling out. I had an article that just posted yesterday on rookie wide receivers going in the double-digit rounds. Also updated some research that I did a couple years ago. And I've got my legendary running back article coming out next week where I dive into the specific scenarios that I've seen from traveling to the future of how these running backs score the absolutely earth-shattering legendary seasons that we need in the early rounds.
Is JK Dobbins in the article?
JK Dobbins didn't. It's an ADP cutoff, so depends how much you guys steam him up. If you can get him into
Guys,
round
if
2
we
by
all
Wednesday.
if we all pool our money together, we can get Dobbins in the leg up article.
We have the opportunity to do the funniest thing.
I think a better question is, did you find a way to shoehorn Drake May in?
Or Rico
I haven't
Dowdle?
yet. Or
Yeah.
Rico Dowdle. Yeah, no, I should do. Yeah, legendary upside at the quarterback position. I haven't yet, but maybe I will. All right. Anything else to shout out, Davis? Tell people what you got going on.
Yeah, check out patreon.com/DavisMattek, my redraft tiers, all my stuff as you do your drafts, manage your leagues, and youtube.com/DavisMattek as well for all the streams.
Kyle?
Roto World Football Show. We just did the mock draft marathon with a whole bunch of mock drafts for different formats. We did a best ball one. Pete was on that if you want to check that out. I feel like I drafted a banger on that one. So go ahead, check that one out, and follow me on Twitter. I post my articles there.
Daniel?
I just won the national title with North Texas in my college football rebuild, but nothing else really going on.
No, you had the tweet of the week.
Oh, yeah. I seem to fool almost everyone in the industry into thinking Keenan Allen was a food critic for Condé Nast reviewing Pequod's Pizza. So,
I mean, that was so obviously fake. I feel bad for anyone who fell for it because it was so obviously not real.
Well, you feel bad for a lot of people, many of whom
Yeah.
we're friends with. Yeah.
I debated for the byline doing Fat Keenan, but I was like, let's just do
No, you nailed
Chicago Bears wide receiver Keenan Allen because I was
So
like, that's
funny.
similarly obviously fake. But
No, you nailed it, man. That's perfect.
Zach?
I just favorited Pete's tweet.
All right, I'm gonna go do that too. Hold on.
We have Sidekick is now DraftKings compatible. So if you're trying to get some last minute volume in, check that out. It's also going to be our playoff best ball tool. So don't worry, you're not too late to subscribe to the Sidekick. And I believe if you want to see it in action, you'll be able to check out Davis's streams, and he will have the Sidekick on there shortly.
That's true.
All right.
Can confirm.
Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Appreciate it.